Okay, it's Wednesday, September 28th. This is a SPY recap, end of the day. You can see here we ended up with a nice green day today. Moved up and actually had a 2-up day where we made a new high, and we reached the first targets that you would expect on if it was going to be an up day. These 3 bars up here, you can see they're pretty close, these highs. So as price was moving up today, that was definitely a target, and we reached it. So in effect, all we've done at the moment is reach the top of a range. As I discussed in the pre-open video, these 4 days now kind of represent a big range. Obviously, these days try to go down a couple of times and failed, and that's why in a second I'll show you, once we had the opening price action, I thought we'd be heading to the top of the range, and that's what we've done. Now, it's also a pretty strong green bar, so to me, that says we should have some follow-through tomorrow above those highs. But the question is, at that point, do we continue up? And I'll show you what's developing if we do that, or is it the type of thing where if you look at these 4 days as a range, maybe we'll get an opening bar failure, or an up bar tomorrow failure that starts down and stays in this range. Now, for that to happen, keep in mind, you're going to have to take the midpoint of this bar. So just because I see price come up tomorrow and maybe not strong, maybe not follow through strongly to start the day, doesn't mean I'm immediately thinking we're heading to the bottom of this range. I'm going to have to see intraday price action that looks that way, and I'm also going to have to come below the midpoint of this bar. So keep that in mind, but it's something we're going to keep in mind. What looks more likely is you're going to have a little bit of an up move continuation after this green bar, out of this range. And let's see what then happens in terms of what's developing. First of all, you have the weekly chart that now is green, and looks like we have a potential at the moment with two days to go in the week, a little bit of a failure to the downside. It hit its target of making a new low after this big red bar. Now we're starting up, so we could still come to the midway. Until we get to the midway point of this bar, I can't really feel like we're going to be heading all the way up to the top of that bar at this point, but we could end up a little bit green or a bit of a hammer bar and maybe get a 2-up bar next week. So we'll look for that. Now, in terms of some of the key areas, as we start up here, I drew these 2 rectangles. This first rectangle represents a little bit of a gap between this high of this bar and the low of this bar. There's a gap in here. So this could be an area you get a failure. It could just be closing this gap and turn down. But again, it's not like once it gets up there, you immediately sell. You wait for reversal signals. You wait for taking out the midpoint of a prior day to the downside. But should we not follow through strongly and you eventually get that, you can feel that the downtrend might be continuing and get excited for that, but we're not there yet. Also, if we get above this first level, then we have this target up here, the high of this bar. This is the daily chart. That's where if we don't fail in here, we should hit the high of that bar. So any price action that doesn't look like it's failing, keep in mind that's the next target. But then we have a very small gap here as well, believe it or not. And this is kind of an area that's kind of, it's more towards the upward part of this bar. So at that point, we'd be moving over the halfway point of this bar, and I wouldn't necessarily expect it to fail up there, but it's something to monitor for. And again, if we head up there, it's probably going to be a strong green week, and we'd expel a follow through into next week. So I'm more looking at this first bar here, this first little zone between the high of this bar and the low of that bar for failures to continue down. If not, we're still probably heading higher. And that's, what happens is, if we look at today, the recap of it, in terms of, I discussed in the opening video how I didn't necessarily know what to expect. I knew we were in a range, in my opinion. I wasn't confident we were going down, and I was, because we hit big targets, yesterday, and I wasn't necessarily, sure if we were going to, go up within this range. But clearly the opening price action after the first bar here kind of paused for 3 bars. We held near the upper end of that pre-market range and then broke through strongly on this green bar. And that, to me, we took out the green line here, which was that turned the weekly chart green at that moment. And then I felt strong that we were heading to the top of the range. So I bought calls in here. I have some videos on that you can look at. And we moved all the way up to the top, obviously hitting a high here at 372.30. So it's a green bar heading into tomorrow. And again, we're going to watch opening price action and see whether we get, we should expect a little continuation, but let's just see, I could see it being a little strong up here and being more in line with this type of action here for the next foreseeable future. Then we're going to have to see how the weekly chart closes. And if it's green, then we should expect some follow through into next week. At that point, we could see whether we hit this weekly target into next week, maybe the first week in October. And if not, maybe in the second week of October, or some kind of failure on the, in the first week, then we can start heading back down again. So it might take a while for that to develop. So we're going to go day by day, but just showing you how when you have the context in play, at least we did today, where you had a big trading range in here, and you saw that the opening price action started up, that was the context to take you to the top of the range, and that's all we're at right now. So I want to see if we break through there, then we could really start a little bit of a little bit rally for a little while. It doesn't mean the whole trend will turn up, but it means maybe we get a green bar like this or two or something like that into October, and then we see kind of we'll see by the end of in 2 days how this monthly chart. If we get up a couple of days, maybe it'll be more of a neutral bar, and maybe we'll have to be inside in October. In other words, if we come up for a few days here to end the month, I'm not going to necessarily expect the downside to be taken out so quickly or the upside, and it might be a lot of consolidation in October. We'll get to that in the days and weeks ahead. So anyway, green day today. Good opportunity for long trades. I was actually getting long other stocks right at the open because they were gapping up strongly. Deere and actually Netflix had a great chart. I almost traded that, but I should have. I bought SPY calls. And there were many other stocks that if you just looked at the opening price action, you saw the up action developing today. And again, not surprising. You went to the top of this range given what you were developing here the last 3 days. So let's see what happens tomorrow. Expecting follow through a little higher. We'll do a pre-open video, see where the ranges, and kind of go as always with opening price action to guide us what may be developing next.